If you remember Baywatch of 1997, then you're surely a fan of Carmen Electra. There's beauty, grace, and talent associated with the Hollywood star, but there's more to her than most of her fans know. The question is, how did a little girl from Cincinnati become such an amazing sensation? What you'll find when you take a trip down her life and memories will certainly blow your mind. Let's start from the very beginning. How it all began. Now, this is not your typical rags to riches tale.
Ooh, I like it muy macho. Now.
It all begins in the unassuming city of Cincinnati, Ohio. She wasn't born the Carmen Electra we know her as today. No. Her name was Tara Lee Patrick. She grew up in a place where the vibe was a far cry from what Hollywood has to offer. Let's face it, at the time Cincinnati was known for a lot of things. Great chili, baseball, maybe a bit of that Midwestern charm.
Too Midwest, what the hell does that even mean?
But it's not exactly the hot spot for aspiring stars. Yet, there she was, dreaming big and dancing her heart out. From a young age, Tara had the itch to perform. Her mom was a singer, and she saw firsthand what it meant to put your soul into the art. From watching her mother, she too wanted to perform. She desired to be in the spotlight and the whole world bowing to her talent. But life wasn't always a smooth ride. It came with its own bumps and heartbreaks. Her father was a guitarist and there was music at home, but they weren't rolling in cash. That struggle, that grind shaped her into a tough cookie, ready to face whatever came her way. But here's where things get wild, because no one could have seen what happened next. By a stroke of fate, or perhaps luck, her life changed dramatically. The leap from Cincinnati to Hollywood was a dream she nurtured, but let's be real, it's like wishing to be struck by lightning. Only this time, lightning had a name: Prince. Prince was her one-way ticket to Hollywood, and here's how it all happened. She was in Los Angeles trying to make it as a dancer, doing whatever gigs came her way when she met this guy who happened to be friends with Prince. He thought she had a spark, and he set up a meeting. Now, imagine being in her shoes, fresh from Ohio, and suddenly she's face to face with Prince, the icon. He had an eye for talent and saw something in this spunky girl from Cincinnati. He decided to give her a shot, which is already mind-blowing, right? But Prince being Prince, he had to make it his own. And this is where the story gets its biggest twist. Prince didn't just want to mentor Tara, he wanted to reinvent her. He looked at her and decided that Tara Lee Patrick just wasn't going to cut it. He believed she needed a name that had more punch, more star power, so he dubbed her Carmen Electra. One day you're a dancer scraping by in LA, and the next, the legendary Prince is not only taking you under his wing, but giving you a brand new name like some kind of pop culture fairy godmother. He basically said, "Tara's nice, but Carmen Electra, that is a star." And just like that, Carmen Electra was born. But Prince didn't stop there. He also signed her to his label, and they started working on an album together. It wasn't exactly a chart topper, but it was a huge leap for someone who was just dreaming of making it. For her, this was the start of a wild ride into the world of showbiz. It's like Prince opened a door to a new universe for her, and she had no idea what kind of roller coaster she was stepping onto. So, in the blink of an eye, a small-town girl with a big dream suddenly found herself in the orbit of a superstar. She went from Tara Lee Patrick to Carmen Electra with just a little nudge from one of the most enigmatic figures in music history. And that moment, meeting Prince, was like the universe hitting shuffle and landing on a track that would change her life forever. Her launch to fame. Now we get to the part that most people remember, the Baywatch years, when Carmen Electra became a full-blown, larger-than-life sensation. If you think of the 90s, there's no way you can skip over the cultural behemoth that was Baywatch. I mean, this show had it all. Slow-motion beach runs, red swimsuits, and those iconic lifeguard towers. And right there in the middle of it all was Carmen Electra. But let's rewind a bit. Before Baywatch, Carmen had already dipped her toes into the Hollywood pool. It's 1996. and Carmen is still finding her way in the entertainment world. She's already got some buzz around her thanks to her connection with Prince, but she hasn't quite reached that superstar status yet. And then she makes a bold move. She poses for Playboy. Now, this wasn't just any photo shoot, it was a full nude pictorial, and it put her right in the spotlight. At that time, posing for Playboy was a big deal. It was a statement, a way of saying, I'm here, I'm confident, and I'm not afraid to take risks. It was daring, especially for someone still trying to find her place in Hollywood. And get this, people couldn't get enough. That first shoot was such a hit that she ended up being featured in Playboy 4 more times over the years. What's wild is that these Playboy shoots did more than just put her in front of a camera. They transformed her into a pop culture symbol. It helped her get noticed in a different way, so people started paying more attention, and suddenly, she was a name you couldn't ignore. It was a strategic move that worked out big time, even if it came with its share of controversy and judgment. With all that buzz, she packed her bags and headed straight for Los Angeles, ready to take her next big leap into acting. And she didn't waste any time. She made her film debut in this quirky little indie movie called American Vampire in 1997. Now, this wasn't some blockbuster hit, but it was the perfect chance for her to test out her acting chops and start showing Hollywood she was more than just a pretty face in a magazine. But in that same year, little did she know she was about to take a gig that would truly make her famous, Baywatch. In 1997, the show is already a massive global hit, watched by millions around the world. So, when Carmen joined the cast as Lonnie McKenzie, it was like the universe handed her a rocket ship to fame. This was no ordinary TV role. Baywatch was basically the Game of Thrones of its time, but with more bikinis and beach rescues. Her job wasn't just about looking good on the beach, though that was a big part of the allure. Her role was about embodying a kind of glamorous, sun-soaked fantasy. She had the look, the confidence, and that unmistakable energy that made her an instant standout on the show. When she ran down that beach, all eyes were on her. And yeah, there were a lot of slow-motion shots that made sure of that. And let's talk about the cultural impact here. Carmen's time on Baywatch turned her into an icon, not just in America, but around the world. It's wild to think about, but Baywatch was syndicated in over 140 countries. That meant that in places as far away as Germany, Brazil, and Japan, people knew her face. She was suddenly part of that very small club of stars whose image was recognizable anywhere on the planet. Being a Baywatch lifeguard wasn't just a TV role. It was a passport to global stardom. Carmen became a staple of that 90s fantasy. Sun, sand, and saving the day, all with perfect hair and a smile. But here's the part that most people don't know, what it took to maintain that image behind the scenes. It's easy to look at those episodes and think, she's living the dream. And sure, she was in some ways. But Hollywood is tough, and the pressure to stay perfect under the spotlight is no joke. Imagine being in a role where millions of people scrutinize how you look in every single episode. Any slight change in appearance would spark rumors and tabloid stories. The constant pressure to stay fit, to keep up with the demands of being a sex symbol. It's like being on a treadmill that never slows down. She's opened up about how that pressure affected her, how she constantly felt like she had to live up to this superhuman version of herself that everyone saw on TV. It's a different kind of tough, where you have to keep smiling and keep that upbeat vibe even when things are chaotic behind the scenes. And let's not forget, the 90s Hollywood scene could be brutal for women. The expectations were intense, and there wasn't much room for mistakes or even just being human. Yet, Carmen managed to turn those challenges into a kind of superpower. She knew what people expected from her, and she leaned into it, turning herself into this untouchable Baywatch bombshell. She made it look easy, even when it wasn't, and that's what made her such a captivating figure. But as there were highs in her life, so were there a lot of lows. The hefty challenges. This part of Carmen Electra's story is where things get really heavy. Fame, magazine covers, red carpets, none of that could prepare her for what life threw her way in 1998. It's the kind of tragedy that changes a person forever. Within the span of just 2 weeks, she lost both her mother and her sister. Her mother, Patricia, passed away from a brain tumor, and right after that, Her sister Debbie died of a heart attack. It was like the ground had been ripped out from under her, and everything she knew and loved disappeared almost overnight. Imagine the heartbreak of losing the two people who know you best, who've been with you through every up and down. And it didn't just happen quietly behind the scenes. This was a time when Carmen was still very much in the public eye. She was known for her bubbly, carefree persona, but inside she was dealing with the kind of pain that would bring most of us to our knees. Grieving is hard enough on its own, but when you're in the spotlight, it's like you're expected to keep up appearances, to smile for the cameras when all you want to do is hide away and scream. Carmen herself has talked about how incredibly tough it was. She felt lost, alone, and like her world had just crumbled to pieces. But here's where her story gets even more real. She didn't just let that grief swallow her whole. She had moments of breaking down, of course, but she somehow found the strength to keep going. It's like she channeled all of that pain into this incredible inner resilience. She said in interviews that she had to learn how to let herself feel that grief instead of pretending it wasn't there. And as heartbreaking as it was, it made her realize just how strong she really was. For a while, work became her way of coping. She threw herself into her projects, into staying busy. But as anyone who's been through loss knows, that grief doesn't just disappear because you distract yourself. She had to go through the painful process of accepting what had happened, of figuring out who she was without her mother and sister in her life. What's incredible is that even in her most vulnerable moments, Carmen managed to turn her pain into a kind of strength. She became open about her loss, talking about it in interviews and sharing her story with fans. It was her way of connecting with people on a deeper level, and over time she started to bounce back. Not in a way that erased the pain, but in a way that honored it. It was like she took all that hurt and used it to build herself up again, piece by piece. She found ways to bring more positivity into her life, focusing on projects that made her happy and finding a sense of purpose beyond her roles on TV and in movies. It didn't happen overnight. Grief never really goes away. But she discovered that she had the strength to keep moving forward, to keep living fully, even when things felt impossible. The reinvention. Let's talk about one of the coolest parts of Carmen Electra's story, her ability to constantly reinvent herself. Carmen didn't just settle into one niche. She kept evolving, proving that she was way more than just a Baywatch babe. This is where we see her becoming a true icon of the 90s, the 2000s, and even today. First up, her MTV phase. After the Baywatch years, she jumped into hosting Singled Out, one of those gloriously over-the-top dating shows that only MTV could pull off in the 90s. This show was loud, ridiculous, and full of wild energy, and Carmen fit right in. She brought her own charm to the screen, making her the perfect match for the show's vibe. Plus, let's be honest, this era was peak MTV, with all the wild spring break specials, music videos, and celeb gossip. Carmen became the face of that scene, the girl who always knew where the party was, who could bring the fun and keep the energy high. It was a different kind of fame, but it was the kind that made her a household name for a whole new set of fans. But here's where things get really interesting. When the reality TV craze hit in the 2000s, Carmen wasn't afraid to dive in. She wasn't content with just being remembered as a 90s icon. She was ready to evolve again. That's when we saw her on The Surreal Life, a reality show that was like a big, strange cocktail of past-their-prime celebrities living together under one roof. And she didn't just show up and blend in. She embraced the chaos, had fun with it, and didn't take herself too seriously. She let her quirky, down-to-earth side show, and people loved it. It was like, hey, she's one of us. She's not afraid to make fun of herself or roll with the punches. And it wasn't just The Surreal Life. Carmen dabbled in all kinds of unexpected ventures that showed she was more than just a pretty face. She got into dancing and burlesque, bringing a little glam and sass to shows like the Pussycat Dolls. Think feathers, glitzy costumes, and some seriously bold moves. She wasn't afraid to take risks and try new things, even if it meant stepping outside of what people expected from her. And let's not forget those workout videos. Yes, Carmen Electra's aerobic striptease was a thing. And honestly, it's kind of genius. It's a mix of fitness and a little bit of cheeky fun, and it showed that she knew her audience. It was a playful twist on the whole exercise video craze, with a little bit of her own flavor thrown in. I mean, who else could make a workout routine feel like a dance party? But what really stands out about Carmen is how she's managed to keep her sense of humor through all of it. She's in on the joke. She knows the world remembers her for those iconic slow-motion beach runs, but she's also okay with laughing about it. She hasn't shied away from her past or tried to reinvent herself into something totally different. Instead, she's taken what people love about her and added new layers, embracing the weird twists of her career while staying true to who she is. Carmen's never really gone away. She's always found a way to stay in the mix, whether it's through a reality show, a fun throwback cameo, or just showing up on social media with that same carefree attitude. It's that ability to adapt and keep things light that has kept her around in a world where fame can be pretty fleeting. She's not just a nostalgia trip, she's someone who has rolled with every unexpected turn, made the best of it, and kept things interesting, and honestly, that's the kind of staying power that's hard to come by. More than a Hollywood symbol. Now for the wilder, more unexpected side of Carmen Electra's life, the stuff that goes beyond just being a sex symbol and pop culture icon. Sure, the world can't get enough of her stunning looks and that larger-than-life persona, but there's so much more to her than that. Take her charitable work, for example. Behind the glamorous exterior, Carmen has a huge heart. She's thrown her energy into causes that are close to her, like Head to Hollywood, a non-profit that supports brain tumor survivors. It makes sense, right? Remember, she went through the pain of losing her mom to a brain tumor, so she's out here trying to make life a little brighter for others going through something similar. And it doesn't stop there. She's also worked with Elevate Hope, which focuses on helping abused and abandoned kids, and the Hollyrod Foundation, providing support to those dealing with life-changing conditions like Parkinson's. It's like she's channeling all that empathy she's gathered from her own struggles into making a difference. Now, let's talk about some of the more offbeat moments in her career. Because with Carmen, there are plenty. Did you know she was a comic book model? Yep. She graced the covers of Razor and Ladies of London Night, showing that she was just as much a star in the world of graphic novels as she was on TV. And in the late 90s, she was the face of Max Factor, turning up in TV and print ads with that perfect camera-ready glow. She even became a spokesperson for men's hair color with Maxim, just another way she kept popping up in places you wouldn't expect. But here's where it gets really wild. In 2002, an extinct species of fly was named after her, Carmen Electra Chechisme. Why? Because of her splendid somal structure. Yes, you heard that right. And if you thought that was out there, just wait. Carmen also dipped into the world of wrestling, creating the Naked Women's Wrestling League in 2005, where she took on the role of commissioner. It was exactly what it sounds like. Part wrestling, part spectacle, and totally out of left field. But that's Carmen, always game to shake things up and try something new. Around the same time, she was the face of Ritz Camera Centers and even showed up in Taco Bell commercials.
Do you like my dress?
That'll do.
It's true. Taco Bell's big, tasty grilled stuffed burrito with double.
Basically, she was everywhere, always finding new ways to keep her name and face out there. Now, when you jump ahead to 2010, Carmen was still surprising people. She released a line of romance toys, which is honestly pretty on-brand for someone who's never been shy about embracing her sultry side. To promote them, she even appeared on the reality show The Spin Crowd, getting some PR magic to help bring her products to the spotlight. It was another example of her willingness to go wherever her interests and the business took her. But fame isn't always smooth sailing, right? Things were about to take a dramatic turn for her. In 2019, Carmen found herself in a legal battle when a strip club in Massachusetts, the Golden Banana, used her likeness on social media without her permission. She wasn't about to let that slide and joined forces with other celebs in taking legal action. It's a reminder that even after all these years, she's not one to back down when it comes to protecting her image. And then in 2020, she became a huge part of the cultural conversation again, thanks to The Last Dance, the docuseries about the Chicago Bulls. People were buzzing about her stories of her whirlwind romance with Dennis Rodman, which gave everyone a juicy look into their wild, unpredictable relationship. And get this, after her appearance on the show, searches for her name on a certain adult website skyrocketed to 1.7 million. Talk about staying relevant. And if you thought she'd slow down after that, think again. In 2022, Carmen took control of her own image in a brand new way by launching an OnlyFans account. For her, it wasn't just about the money or the buzz, it was about finally being able to call the shots and share her own creative vision. As she put it, I, for once, have this opportunity to be my own boss and have my own creative vision to share with my fans without someone standing over me. It's like a full circle moment, taking back ownership of her image after all those years of being seen through the lens of others. So, from charity work to comic books, from quirky business ventures to internet buzz, Carmen's story is one of constant reinvention. She's always finding new ways to surprise us, never content to be just one thing. That's what makes her so fascinating. She's always evolving, always finding a new way to remind the world that she's still here, still doing things her own way.